Here on the official show, Eli Sussman, Daniel Rodriguez, with a special interview here in the aftermath of the 2022 MLB draft. Marlins made 20 picks, and two of them from the same school, from Louisiana Tech. And in the 7th round, getting Kyle Crigger, a right-handed pitcher. In the 10th round, getting Kade Gibson, a left-handed pitcher. And we're going to find out more about these guys and about this program in Louisiana Tech, and also some adjacent draft topics. I think just an amazing guest that we thought would be most appropriate for this is a former pitcher at Louisiana Tech himself, and he's the publisher of BleedTechBlue that covers all things about the program. It's Ben Carlisle. Thank you for jumping on with us.
Absolutely, guys. I appreciate y'all having me on.
I wanted to start pretty generally because I admitted to you, I did not know much about this program at all until the names were called. I guess this was on Monday with both these players. And from the most basic standpoint, could you just let people understand exactly where Louisiana Tech is and a little bit about the history of the baseball program they got over there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When you look at or when you hear the name Louisiana Tech, I think a lot of people around the country kind of associate the entire state of Louisiana with New Orleans. But Louisiana Tech's actually located in Ruston, Louisiana, which is in the kind of the central, as far north as you can get, but in the middle part of the state. It's about an hour and a half to the east of Shreveport, which is probably the biggest major city that's close to Louisiana Tech. And it's a program that, and we talked about this before we started recording. I played at Louisiana Tech from 2011 to 2014. You going all the way back, to the early 90s into the 2000s and to where we are in 2022. The program hasn't had a lot of history in the last 30 years, but as you've seen, dating back to 2016, the program's now been to 3 regionals. And I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit later, but back in 2019, there was actually a tornado that came through Ruston, wiped out the entire stadium. So the program got to build a new stadium, off of that. And it's really kind of led to where they've been the last couple of years, hosting a regional in 2021, playing in the Austin regional this past season. And Kyle Crigger, Kade Gibson, those two guys were key contributors, really strong performers throughout their time in Ruston, no doubt about it.
Yeah, both me and Daniel, we're big Miami Hurricanes fans. And I think maybe if they know anything, the listeners, about the school, it's probably about these teams meeting on the football field a few years ago in the Independence Bowl. You remember that game where Miami got embarrassed there?
I don't want to remember.
Got shut out in a bowl game against Louisiana Tech. But I imagine that was a lot of fun for you guys.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I was actually on the sideline at that game. And I also remember back in my childhood when Miami traveled to Shreveport and they met at a neutral site game at Independence Stadium. And, I believe Frank Gore, Antrell Roll, Sean Taylor. That's one of, back in Miami's heyday, that was so cool for us to get to see them way back then. But yeah, absolutely. I forgot about that Independence Bowl game back in 2019.
Yeah, one other thing before I hand it over to Daniel, the Marlins, the big league team, they had their AAA affiliate in New Orleans for over a decade until I think 2019. As we just got into, it's not anywhere close to Ruston. That's a big drive to get down there. But I am curious if you ever were to one of those New Orleans AAA baby cakes games when they were still in town?
I have not ever been down to New Orleans to a baby cakes game. The closest minor league team that we had to us for a while, the Giants AA team, was actually the Shreveport Captains. And you'd have to go way back. It's probably been 15, 20 years now since they relocated. But those are the minor league games that I kind of went to growing up, which obviously they're not around. And so probably the closest to us now, Jackson, Mississippi is a couple hours from Ruston. That'd be the closest minor league affiliate, maybe into Little Rock, something like that would be, where fans in our areas would go for minor league baseball.
Yeah. My question to you, just really quick, I want to go a little bit on your baseball career, that you're actually teammates with the current major leaguer now from the Astros, Phil Maton. Just how was that being teammates with him and just seeing where he's at right now, just killing it with the Astros.
Yeah, it was really cool. I'm glad you asked about Phil. He was actually my roommate in college. So we got to know each other really well. He's from Chatham, Illinois. Just one of those kids from the north that was wanting to get down into the South, which is, probably more baseball country. And, as a pitcher, he kind of burst on the scene for us as a freshman. I remember we went up to a midweek game at Vanderbilt, and he went 7 innings, probably punched out 10. And really had a good, solid career at Louisiana Tech. I don't think any of us walking away from that was like Phil's going to pitch in the big leagues one day, but he got the opportunity to get drafted, I believe, in the 20th round by the Padres. They stuck him in the bullpen. He's a spin rate guy before spin rate was kind of really emerged as one of those catchy phrases that you hear across, minor league and major league baseball. And he really utilized it. You look at his minor league numbers; they were really absurd coming up through the Padres system. And he at Tech, he was a fastball slider guy. I know he's developed into a little bit of a cutter guy now that he's gotten into the big leagues, but just a great guy. And like I said, I had the opportunity to play with him at Louisiana Tech, but happy for him and all the success that he's had throughout his career.
And what have you seen from the Bulldogs last year? Because last year was easily one of the best seasons in team history, making the tournament again for back-to-back years and winning the conference for the first time since the 80s. How was that also watching it, and also the performances from Krieger and from Kade?
Yeah, you go, like I mentioned earlier, that tornado in 2019, you hate to say something like that would kind of lay the foundation for where they're at right now, but in a way it did. You guys are familiar with college athletics with the transfer portal, and guys can so easily leave, and not one player left off that team. The 2020 team was slated to play at a high school field for its home games all year. Obviously, the season gets shut down due to COVID. And you mentioned Krieger. He was one of those guys that he signed with Louisiana Tech knowing that they didn't have a home field. So, a lot of credit goes to him for holding that commitment. And they go through that 2020 season, COVID hits, and that kind of put a stop on. I don't know if you could necessarily say it's a good thing or a bad thing. Obviously, some guys got their eligibility frozen at that point, but once they got the stadium rebuilt, they opened it in 2021. It just kind of created that wave of momentum to where we've got to today. All those guys stick around. You get the extra year due to COVID. That paid off for them big in 2021 when then they hosted the regional, and they kind of carried that over here into 2022 with Kyle Crigger, Kade Gibson, 2 older guys. It was kind of their time to lead. Ryan Jennings, another right-handed pitcher that was selected by the Blue Jays. Taylor Young was a second baseman selected by the Dodgers in the 8th round. And really all those guys just kind of rallied together, and it's kind of established that blue-collar mentality that they take on, that Lane Burroughs kind of heads up as the head coach. And it's been, I'll be honest, it's been really, really fun to watch. It's been impressive to watch just to kind of see the rise of the program. And then now that we're into the offseason, they got some former top 100 guys out of high school transferring in from LSU and Texas A&M. So you've kind of been able to see the bump up in recruiting as well.
Yeah, we're going to get into your guys in just a moment. Really quickly, I think we should probably cover the number 1 pick that the Marlins made in this draft class, just because he was in state. He did play head-to-head against Tech this past season, and that's Jacob Berry, who actually, as of earlier today, he's agreed to terms with the Marlins. They're going to pay $6 million to bring him in. And I'm curious about anything. It was only 1 year that he played for LSU after he transferred in from out west. If there's anything that you saw from him, how closely did you follow his season?
Yeah, so I actually did some radio for about a year and a half here in Ruston. So going back to February, LSU came up to Ruston. They'll take one midweek around the state, per year. And we got the opportunity to interview Jay Johnson, the head coach down there, on the day of the game. And that was one of the questions I'd ask, because we were familiar, obviously, that Barry had transferred in. And he just said he's the purest hitter he's ever been around. And I think you get the opportunity to see him in person. And I don't think anything wows you physically as far as how he's built or what he does, but he just barrels the baseball so well. And I know a lot of people talk about how some of the batted ball data is not all that impressive. But I legitimately believe you could throw him in Double-A right now, and I mean, I would imagine if you gave him the next 2 months of the minor league system, you'd start him in Triple-A the following year. I just believe he's that good of a hitter. A lot of questions about his defense, and I don't know. I think there's a chance he could end up as a DH. He's not the most overly athletic kid in the world, which gives you some hesitation. And we got to see him. I believe he played right field the day he was in Ruston. It just he doesn't have a lot of fluid movement, I guess, when it comes to his athleticism. But I believe in the bat. I'm a huge Cubs fan myself, so I was hoping he was getting to number 7, and they would take a chance to get him there. But I can tell you, he is one of the best hitters. I think he's the best hitter in this college class, and I think he's going to do nothing but hit at the major league level.
Yeah, and the question I wanted to ask was, against LSU, you really had really great performances. First up from Kade, I'm looking at his stats right now. He had 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. Just what did you see from Kade and even Kyle, who finished up the game against LSU, when they're doing so good against one of the top teams in college baseball?
So first, I want to tell you guys a little bit about Cade's story. It's so interesting. It's so cool. He actually started his career at an NAIA school over in Shreveport, LSU Shreveport. And to be honest with you, numbers weren't great. Mid-6 ERAs, got hit around a bunch. And it's a good NAIA conference, but it's not a guy that you would, create a lot of buzz to when he transferred back to Louisiana Tech. He's from Ruston. And that was kind of his thoughts as far as why he wanted to come back, was to be play for his hometown school. And Lane Burroughs gave him a chance to walk on. Then he needs Tommy John surgery. And so it's like, oh man, like, is he ever going to get the opportunity to play again? And then 2021 hits. He's a guy you hear so much about how he performs in the fall. First outing of the year is actually down in Baton Rouge at LSU. I believe he gave up a grand slam in his first inning, and you're like, oh man, like, what's going to happen? But a couple weeks later, number 4 Ole Miss comes to town. He goes, I believe, 7 innings, shuts them out at home over those 7 innings, and you're like, all right, this guy's a guy. But the one thing that sticks out about Kade Gibson, beyond what he does on the mound, he's an ultimate competitor. Like, when he takes the baseball, he's coming right at you. He's not going to pitch around guys. He doesn't care, what your name is, what kind of accolades you've accomplished in your career. He's going to come at you with a fastball, changeup, and curveball, and he commands the strike zone really well. He's obviously an older kid, having been in college, I believe, for 6 years. So I think I'll be most interested to see, how the Marlins decide to use him. Being so old, I would imagine you stick him in a bullpen and kind of see what he can do. And you look at this past year for Louisiana Tech, he started out as the midweek guy, moved up to the Sunday guy, and then he was the Friday night guy by the end of the year. But I'll tell you, the biggest thing for him on the mound, he's got a really good fastball, really good curveball, and going in on right-handers when his fastball's right. That's when he's at his best, is going in on right-handers and then using that curveball to play off of it.
Yeah, and I was just looking at one of his games. He probably had his best game against a team here in Miami against FIU, where he went his longest 8 innings, 5 strikeouts. Just what type of pitcher did you see him as? Is he can he go these deep innings, 7, 8, 9 innings? Do you see him like that, or when you saw him at LA Tech?
Yeah, I think he's better suited as far as a multi-inning reliever. And, there's so many different things that professional organizations can do with guys that can allow them to get deeper into games. But there was, I'd bet 8 or 9 starts this year where he would give you shutout baseball over the first 3 or 4 innings of the game. That he would kind of lose it once he hit that 60, 65, 70 pitch mark. So I think he's probably better suited to be a multi-inning reliever, which would allow him to predominantly become a fastball curveball guy, which I think are as easily his 2 best pitches.
As you did mention, a little bit older than most of these other draftees. I think
Yeah.
he's 24 and a half at this point.
Yeah.
So that is unusual, but you understand why when you go through his story, for sure.
No, well, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think that's the thing. I mean, it's hard to stick a guy in single A and allow him to start knowing that, his clock's ticking and he's almost 25 years old. And so I think that would probably be the best case scenario for him. And you guys know how this works, but I think that for him, multi-inning bullpen guy, and I think he'll have some success in the lower level minor leagues just because of how seasoned he is and how much experience he has.
Yeah, and he didn't walk a lot of guys too. But I was looking at he had close to 100 strikeouts, less than 20 walks. So he's also really able to just limit walks while maintaining high strikeouts.
No, yeah, and that's just like Krieger. Both those guys, they're coming at you, and you might hit them around the yard some days, but they're not going to get themselves into trouble by putting guys on base for freebies. And he, like I said, when he's really rolling, it's the fastball inside to right-handed hitters, and he allows that big breaking ball, big 12-6 curveball, which is extremely difficult to hit. That's when he's at his best, and I think, probably his best attribute is just that no fear. Like, I mean, he's coming at you with that kind of bulldog mentality, which I think is kind of what made him successful in college.
Well, that was really a perfect breakdown of Gibson. We might as well do the same with Krieger. These highlights from the game against LSU at LSU on the road, he pitched the final 4 innings of that game, deep into extras as well. I think piled up 8 strikeouts in relief in that game. And he just really fascinating season. I think he may have pitched in about as many games as anybody in Division I this year. He made 37 appearances, more than once every other game. So that is really that's what stood out to me the most is just the usage that he was used in all these different situations, and that they really leaned hard on him this past year.
There ain't no doubt about that. I think Lane Burroughs, that's the one thing that he talks about with Kyle Crigger. It's like, if it's a tight game late, he doesn't even have to look up down to the bullpen. He knows he was getting ready to come in the game, and he just kind of runs to those big situations. That's kind of how he's built. The heartbeat never gets too high. You mentioned that LSU game down in Baton Rouge. Louisiana Tech had a late lead in that game. I believe it was 7-6 in the 12th. They get 2 on second and third with no outs, and he figures out a way to get out of it. And he's just I mentioned how big of a competitor Kade Gibson is. I could go beyond that with Kyle Crigger. I mean, this kid wants the baseball every time the game's on the line. And you say that, you think reliever, you think a college closer, that he's kind of a 2-pitch guy. I think if he was 20 years old, you probably send him out as a starter because he's got a really good changeup, really good slider. Obviously, the fastball's been up to 97, but he can really, really pitch. And the 37 appearances, he kind of got worn down later in the year. The numbers, the season totals weren't really – they don't accurately describe it, I guess you could say. He appeared 5 games in 6 days in the Conference USA tournament, appeared in, I believe, 3 of Louisiana Tech's regional games. He was just the guy that they went to with the game on the line. He's probably my most favorite kid that I've covered at Louisiana Tech over the last 6 years.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about Kyle. Just what did you see from him? And you mentioned these high leverage moments, whether against LSU, Conference USA tournament. Just how does he handle pressure? Just you know him better than us. You've probably been around him more. Just how is it him handling pressure and be able to take the ball and say, I'm going to go out there and beat this ranked team, or I'm going to go off against their best hitter?
Yeah, if you took a picture of him, if you brought him in a game, bases loaded, no outs, you'd never know if there was nobody on, nobody out in an 11-0 game. And that's just how he is. And he lives for those moments. He's another kid, like I said, he's been through a lot. He committed to Louisiana Tech. They didn't have a stadium. Had Tommy John surgery in the summer of 2020, came back, 8 or 9 months and was back into the fire in 2021. And then you could kind of see the stuff really tick up here in 2022. Fastball kind of got up to 97. And Lane Burroughs told us a funny story. I believe it was the night of that LSU game that we got to talk to Jay Johnson. He said he kind of looked around the clubhouse a week or 2 before the season was starting. It was like, guys, I don't really know who our closer is going to be this year. And he said not 15, 20 minutes later, the pitching coach was like, hey, you kind of pissed off Krieger. And he was like, well, that's kind of what I was intended to do. And I think that kind of helped propel him to the year that he had. But he's just such a competitor. He can fill a multitude of roles. He obviously had the 9 saves. He's had outings where he's gone 4 or 5 innings at different times. He's that guy that you kind of look for as an older senior sign that's going to really – he's going to get through single A. He's going to get through high A. He's going to be a guy that you kind of find out what he's made of when he gets to double A. But it wouldn't surprise me to kind of see him continue to move up through a system just with his ability to pitch. He can really, really pitch. He's a 3-pitch guy that can really get after hitters.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a popular opinion, but there are some analysts I really trust that are curious if he could actually be a starter in the pros and going all the way up, because you mentioned the 3 pitches he has. And I think there may even be like a second breaking ball there that he may have put in his back pocket when he was pitching out of the pen that he could bring out if he was in the starter role. I've just heard amazing praise for the kind of stuff that he has and how potentially you don't usually see it in that direction, right? When somebody their final year in school is only out of the pen and they get stretched out in the pros, but he really is one of the, overall this entire draft for the Marlins, like he's somebody that has really opened my eyes when I dig into the kind of potential that he could have in the pros.
Well, yeah, and it's like I said, if he was 20 years old, I don't think there's any doubt. I think you send him out as a starter and you kind of see what he can do before you push him into the bullpen if he proves he can't do it. But, yeah, he can play off that slider some. He can shape it in different ways. And, I mean, you guys know how it is with the video these days with major league teams kind of getting their mind as far as spin rate and changing breaking balls and changing sliders or changing changeups and fastball shape and all that type of stuff. So, but I think he can really be successful. I think Kade can too, if he's used in the right way and you kind of put him in those right spots. And a lot of it is a lot of it's luck at the end of the day. But these are 2 guys, especially Krieger and Gibson. They can really, really get after it on the mound. And I think that's probably one of the things that attracted major league teams to them the most is just how competitive they are when they get on the mound.
Yeah, just how was it just watching this team this year? Because I was just looking up, multiple guys drafted. Right-handed pitcher Ryan Jennings went in, I believe, the 4th round. Just how was it just watching this pitching staff? When you have multiple now guys who are drafted going to the majors.
Yeah, and Jennings and Krieger and Gibson, they weren't the 3 guys at the beginning of the year. Jonathan Fincher's actually a big left-handed pitcher. That was an All-American a season ago that didn't have a bad year in 2022 by any means, but he wasn't drafted. And Jennings, he was a 4th rounder from the Blue Jays. A lot like these guys had faced some adversity. Was the Saturday guy to start the year, struggles, gets put into a bullpen. And I think that's ultimately, was a blessing for him and why he got drafted. He goes up to 99 as a reliever. In the 2 weeks he's a reliever, and then every time you show up to a start, there's 5 or 6 scouts in the stands. And so it kind of defines how the program is built. Like I was saying earlier, it's just a blue-collar, get-after-you type attitude. Taylor Young was picked in the 8th round by the Dodgers. He's a 5'8", second baseman, played some shortstop, won a Gold Glove as a second baseman in collegiate baseball in 2021. They move him to shortstop here in 2022, hits 12 home runs. It's just the program, and it seems funny to say, but that's kind of how it's been built. Just a bunch of guys that didn't get a whole lot of recognition out of high school. All 3, or Krieger and Jennings, are junior college guys. Gibson mentioned went to the NAIA school, and then Young was a little 5'8" second baseman out of high school. So that's just kind of the mentality that they kind of carry around with themselves. It's just kind of being that underdog and kind of proving how good they're going to be.
Well, let's get you out of here on this. Way too early, a full calendar year away, but of the guys that are still with the team that are going to be draft eligible next year, is there anybody that you have your eye on that you think has an opportunity to really open some eyes during the 2023 season heading into that draft?
I'll give y'all 4 names. I mentioned Jonathan Fincher earlier. I think these 3 pitchers getting drafted in the top 10 rounds, it'll be good motivation for him as he closed out the summer. He pitched in the Cape earlier this summer. And so he got some good experience up there, and I think that'll be good motivation for him coming back. Also, Phil Matulia is another guy that's playing in the Cape right now. He's an outfielder. He turned down an offer from the Braves last summer, came back in 2022, didn't have as good of a year, but he's a really, really good runner. He's probably a 6'8", 60 guy, has a lot of power as well. Played some first base for Louisiana Tech this year, but I think ultimately his defensive home is probably out in left field. And the final 2 names, probably the upper echelon guys. George Corona's a catcher out of Miami. I believe he's picked in the 39th round out of high school by the Royals. He's coming off a year. He started a little bit slower, but really came on strong late in the year, hit 280. I think he had 16 home runs, had a 53% caught stealing rate. He's up in the Cape as well right now. And then finally, Cole McConnell. He's really, really fun. He's a center fielder. He plays a corner outfielder professionally. Some of the batted ball data wasn't as good, but he's just a really, really good pure hitter. Hit 330 this year, had 9 home runs, 76 RBIs. Was actually just last week was named an All-Star in the Cape for this summer. So they got some guys coming back that are obviously have a chance to be drafted. I mentioned a transfer from LSU, Brody Drost, was a top 100 player coming out of Barb High School in 2020. He'll be draft eligible as well. So I would expect the program, now that it's kind of gotten off the ground and really gotten rolling, they're going to have multiple guys drafted over the next few years.
That'd be a fun tradition. Every single year, the Marlins go back to the well with Tech and get more guys here.
And guys, I'll tell you, the funny thing is, I would like to go ask some of these scouts, who are you here watching? What are you checking out? And a lot of times scouts, they're going to tell you who they're watching, but the biggest thing that they would tell you about the program is just kind of the culture surrounding it and how they are able to keep guys here. Guys don't transfer out, and how unique that is. And Parker Bates was a kid that was picked in the 9th round last year by the Royals, and he was a little bit similar to that as far as they just believe in the culture. They know the players are more mature, and they're not kids that you're going to have to necessarily worry about in their transition to professional baseball. So I'm excited to kind of see where the program goes, to see if they can become one of those programs that can compete with an LSU or an Ole Miss more than just in a midweek game year in and year out.
Yeah, well, we'll be following it as closely as we can, and vice versa. Hopefully, in just a few weeks, once these guys get signed, get on the mound, excited to get some highlights of them, and with Marlins affiliates, and we'll send them your way here at Fish Stripes. We're excited. Like I said, these particular picks with both Gibson and Krieger were a couple of my favorites in this entire draft class that the Marlins made. So with Daniel Rodriguez, I'm Eli Sussman. Ben Carlisle of BleedTechBlue, covering the Louisiana State baseball program, an alum of the program himself, and he seems like a proud alum of how this program has taken off in recent years. Thank you for joining us so much, Ben. This has been awesome.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.